Hello and welcome to the Majlis, the weekly podcast by Radio Free Radio Liberty, focusing on Central Asia. I am Mohammed Tahir, Radio Free Radio Liberty's media manager for South and Central Asia here in Washington, D.C. Holding a demonstration, especially against the government, is a daring act in Kazakhstan, and a bunch of Kazakh youth activists are daring such actions time and again. Despite a growing crackdown by the authorities, these young people are going nowhere and are increasingly coming up with new ways to express their frustration, one of which is a growing trend of one-man protest. These actions are clearly irritating the authorities, but the question is, are their activism making any progress on the ground? What are their successes and challenges, and how do they see their own political future? To discuss all these, I'm joined by Asam Jabshiva, one of the founding members of the youth-led group Oyan Qazaqstan, Alia Izbasarova, co-founder of another Kazakh youth group called Kahraman, Aysana Ashim, founder of The Village, a youth-run publication in Almaty, Kazakhstan, and Bruce Pannier, editor of Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty Central Asia blog, Kishlok Owazi. Colleagues, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice to have you. Very nice to have you. So, Asim, let's start with you. I have seen some pictures on your Twitter feed yesterday about the protest demanding the release of a detained activist. How did it go, and who's the person you are asking for his release?
Yes, I tweeted some pics, but there were no detentions. What happened is yesterday and today, our activists in Almaty, they were called to the police stations, where they tried to threaten us because tomorrow we are going on a march in Almaty and few more cities in Kazakhstan. And they called us because they wanted to threaten us. And for instance, with me, I was there yesterday at the police station, and they tried to threaten me by saying that it is against the law to protest. There will be consequences for me and for other activists. I might even go to jail, and that's what happened yesterday, and today as well.
We are talking in the forms of tomorrow and yesterday. In fact, the podcast is going to be published on Sundays, and today is Thursday.
It's Constitution Day tomorrow.
It's Constitution Day tomorrow in Kazakhstan, 30th of August. And
what's that? You picked the Constitution Day. You are not happy about the Constitution or the day? What's that?
Yeah, because our movement is created solely for one purpose. We think and we demand political reforms, and we're saying that this reform should start with reforming of our constitution. Because how do I put this?
It is
our president, our ex-president, Nursultan Nazarbayev, he's been changing constitution since 1995, and a lot of changes have been made, and they're all against human rights, and they don't give any rights to for Kazakhstani people. That is why we are going on a march tomorrow. We are demanding to reform our constitution, to change the law.
Okay. Let me bring on Alia, what your group is doing tomorrow or recently, and how authorities are responding to your activism.
My group is focused on human rights, on defense of human rights. The ones that we prioritize the most: freedom of expression, freedom of peaceful assembly, and the right to a fair trial. So we have been mostly documenting the instances of violations of human rights by the authorities, such as detentions during peaceful gatherings and politically motivated trials. So regarding our recent activism, we've gone on several one-person protests, but they were more from individuals from us as separate activists rather than the group. But as a group, we've organized recently a demonstration, tweeted about that recently. It's basically a humorous version of a demonstration, the idea which we took from our Russian colleagues. The idea is to portray the political situation and the social situation in the country in a funny way, so come out with jokes on placards and a big stretch, a big banner that would say something funny and basically poke at the authorities, but in a pretty innocent and harmless way. So it was youth-oriented. It was announced to take place on last Sunday, and a group of us have gathered there, and we started to, take our placards, our posters and stuff. And the moment we started to stretch out our banner, a representative of the local government came up to us and demanded us to stop because she called it an unsanctioned gathering. So we weren't too happy about that, but we started to obey. So we started to put our stuff back into bags and we started to leave. And as we were walking away, 9 of us, we were circled by the police. They were following us for quite a while as we were going towards the bus station. And suddenly 2 buses blocked our way, and a dozen or maybe 2 dozen, I don't know, a lot of military officers came out. And it was like in an American action movie. They were just running like it was some sort of dangerous military operation to pack 10 teenagers and young people into a bus. I found that kind of funny too.
It's also strange. So let's bring in Aysana. You look into these things from a different perspective as a journalist. So why the authorities are responding to these actions in such a harsh way? Why would they even bother if a man or woman standing in the corner, perhaps holding a banner or something like that? Why to bother with them?
Well, I think they're afraid because they never saw this for 30 years. And now people are starting to think, starting to react, to act, and they want to close it, to shut it down, but they can't. And but we see now that they start to push people. For example, people went to protest and they were not imprisoned. I think that they don't have a plan. The big plan how to react to these things, because they think that they never saw it for 30 years, and now they're starting to create some plan. Do we react or do we ignore such kind of things? And it is different. In Astana or in Almaty, they react even differently. For example, demonstration, that Aliyah told us about, it was really harsh. But in Almaty, last protest, they were really they were ignoring them.
Why there's a difference between them? I mean, what's the logic behind that, as far as you can tell?
I think they are more afraid because it's happening in capital, in capital of the country, where all the authorities live, walk, and so on. So maybe they're afraid it's in the capital.
Oh, okay. There's a public relation angle to that, the way they are reacting. Bruce, in talking of public relations here, authorities, the way they are reacting to these bunch of young people, they are not doing any good for Kazakhstan in terms of public relations. How do you read their response?
Well, that's putting it mildly. I mean, Kazakhstan has gotten so much attention lately for at least as much attention for their crackdowns and sometimes ridiculous crackdowns on what's perceived to be protests. The whole idea of an individual protest or this monstratia that they held with just a few people. So what if me and 4 or 5 of my friends are hanging out on the street? That's okay. But if we're talking about politics, then it's not okay. The individual protest. I know our guests have probably all seen this video too. But it's gotten to the absurd point where they had that artist, somewhere up in the north, in Temirtau or somewhere. He was coming back with a blank sheet of paper so that he could paint on it, and he was sitting at the bus stop, and the police came up and wanted him to unroll this piece of paper so they could see if there was anything on it. Where was it?
Kostanay.
Oh, Kostanay, right. Kostanay, yes. Yep. Thank you. And even when he showed them that there was nothing on it, they still took all his information. They wanted to know where he was from and show me your documents. We've seen people that came out and did their one-person protest with blank signs and actually with no sign, but they pantomimed holding a sign. But so the Kazakh authorities, when they detain people like that, then you have to look at that and go, well, what exactly is legal in Kazakhstan? You can't stand on the corner with a blank piece of paper or with no piece of paper, but acting like you're holding one. That's not permitted. You can't have a good time and make some jokes about the way the political system works. You're not calling for the overthrow of the government. You're just having a good, a little bit of fun, which is certainly normal in Western countries. In fact, some of the humor can be quite nasty, which was not the case at the Monstratia. I saw them holding the signs. It makes the government, the authorities, look bad and very paranoid and nervous about what's going on.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, Asim or Ali, feel free to jump in here. So when the authorities see you guys walking in the street, one or a couple of people together, what they see in you?
Well, in daily life, they don't really follow us around much. They tend to are stalkers, as we call them, people from the National Committee of Security. They tend to follow us around only when they know that something is about to happen, when something was announced. Even if it's something innocent, not even like a protest or a demonstration. It could just even be, us getting help, aid, humanitarian aid for people who are under house arrest or in detention somewhere. So when they know when we're doing something together, they kind of send some people to follow us around. And what could that mean? That means they just want to know everything about us, every move, make sure we don't do anything they wouldn't like. But it's really hard for us to at least to estimate the level of threat that they see in us.
Mm-hmm. I sensed from the British accent this was Alia, I believe, the one who was speaking. So let's get Asim, your point, and how do you see it? I'm just trying to understand the psychology behind when security officers in the street, they start moving towards young people when they see a couple of them are together walking around. How to even explain that kind of situation? What happens?
I completely agree with Alia here, but I also want to add that in Almaty, for instance, because of the demographics in the city, it's the largest city in Kazakhstan, and I think that there was more than 2 million, and half of the population of the city, they're under 35, and they're threatened because of the things happened in Almaty before. For instance, in 1986, there were protests in Kazakhstan, which led to a political crisis. And I think they see us as a huge threat. And because of that threat, they are not so harsh here in Almaty. Because they don't want to start with like a huge protest by themselves. Like a similar thing happened here in April when Asya Tulesova and Bibar Stolnbekov, they were detained. Yeah. They started this movement actually, Oyan Qazaqstan police, with their actions. Right. We saw how they reacted. I'm a journalist. I'm not a political activist, but I couldn't just sit there and my friends detained. So that is why we started this movement. And
also,
sorry.
Sure, come
Can I just add something there to this issue of how they see us, but not the authorities, maybe them too, but also the actual military and men and policemen. So when I was in the bus, when they packed us in day after demonstration, I said I was laughing because it was so silly to me what was happening. And one of the military men said, "Oh, why are you laughing, trying to overthrow the country and start a revolution?" And that's the moment I realized how disproportional our actions are in their heads as opposed to what they really are. So the problem is that both many of the people and the authorities don't have a concept of how freedom of speech works, how freedom of thought works, the freedom to have a different opinion and how that should be okay, and doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a civil war tomorrow because we just came out with some funny jokes and something like that. So that's a big problem.
Aysana, what do you know about this chain of command there? When the couple of police officers start moving against a bunch of young people, how this chain of order looks like? Are they acting on their own, or there is an existing chain of command that they take their authority from mayor, from governor, from minister, from president? How does this chain of command looks like behind what they do and how they do? The security officers.
I'm not sure I know the right answer. I think they just follow the command. For example, if the command is to detain people in this protest, they will follow this command. And sometimes it's different. Actually, I don't see the scheme.
Asim, is it your understanding?
It's different, like case by case. Mostly they follow activists on social media, and they follow our posts, and they know exactly what we are doing. For instance, a few months ago when police came at my door, 20 minutes before that, I tweeted a picture with a banner saying "Oyan, wake up." on one of our activists' balcony, and they thought that it was my sign. And it's exactly 20 minutes after I tweeted that picture, they were at my door.
Wow.
And they just searched all over my place, of course illegally, and tried to find anything, like any banners or any other stuff, but they couldn't, of course. And I was like, oh my God, guys, I just tweeted that like 20 minutes ago. You are so fast. And they were like, yeah, of course we're watching you. We follow all of your accounts and we know exactly what you are doing. So whenever I tweet something or post something, I know I'm tweeting for them, not for my followers, because I know my followers that they're liberal, they have they like-minded and everything like that. I try to tweet for them, or I try to write my posts for them. I'm trying to work with them. Yeah. And change their perception of our movement, Aliyah's movement, or other movements in Kazakhstan, like Republic. I think just three of us. Republic, Oyan Qazaqstan, Kahraman. Right. And yeah, that's one scenario when they just know our faces and know us from our social media. And when it comes to meeting rallies or protests on the streets, they usually have these people. They usually don't wear any police uniform. Mm-hmm. They are just among protesters, and whenever they see a familiar face or whenever they see someone who is in their familiar, they just show this person and police just take them. Yeah. I know that because similar thing also happened to me when I was detained in May. I was there, but I was with Joanna Lillis. Mm-hmm. We were just talking, and one person who was among protesters, he was like, take her. He wasn't even wearing any uniform. He was very young, just a guy. And they took me like a few minutes later, and that's how they work.
When they take you, what follows next? What they do, how they behave, what they ask? Just paint us that picture, how that looks like.
There are a few different scenarios. Of course, first thing they do, they try to threaten you.
Saying what?
They if you were a guy, they say things like, come on, you were a jigid, you are a guy, you have no dignity, why you are doing this for your country. And with few of our activists in other cities like Shymkent, they actually beat them, and they threaten them like, we were going to your parents, we know where you live, we know your brothers and sisters, and etc. Right. Second thing they do, they took your phone and they find some stuff, your pictures or things you have in your phone, your personal stuff, and they threaten you with this information. Illegal, of course. And could you maybe add something, Aliyah or Aysana? You also know a lot of...
Yes, it's very pathetic. It's very pathetic knowing that how bad our situation how many criminals we need to follow, and all these authorities follow our accounts, and very pathetic.
Well, another thing I'd like to add is that I've heard some rumors that judges and police officers, as they interrogate you, they texting with people who tell them what to say, what to ask, what verdict to make. And it did look like that to me a lot of the time, because they hold the phone in their hands and then they look down at it and only then they ask me questions. It's very strange.
Also, I also wonder, girls, that it's a lots of emotional pressure there. That you guys are taken into custody and you don't know what tomorrow will bring, and probably your parents, your family members are going through this pressure in this the other way. How your family members react to your activism?
Well, I think parents should respect the choices of their children, and of course they're worried usually, and probably they wish we weren't doing the things we do most of the time. But, well, they don't have choice, really. They can't tie us at home to the door and never let us out,
Yeah. Asam, do you want to say anything? Also, if your parents had any conversation with you about your activism, how that conversation sounded like?
I just, few hours ago, I had a very very hard conversation with my mom, actually. My family isn't taking it very well. I had to block all of them, most of them, on my social media. And for my mother is very hard. And of course, she knows that I won't change my mind and I will just continue doing what I'm doing. And because I'm going on a march tomorrow, we had this conversation where she tried to talk me out and tried to, she lives in a different city, and she was like, you should come here, you should work here, you should, just hide, because you are, for them, you are nothing. They will just, you're going to end up in jail and no one's going to help you. And she says things like that, but it's something I have to deal with, and I have my friends here in Almaty, and they support me fully. But when it comes to my family, it's very hard. Of course, I come from a very, how do I say? My family is very traditional, and we don't have any power. We don't have any money. Right. So in Kazakhstan, at least if you have some money and you go to jail, that money can help you a lot. Which my family cannot do. That's why they're so worried. But I try to, talk to them and try to explain my point of view, which is really
Can I jump
hard
in with a
sometimes.
question? Mr. Tahir?
Yeah, please, Bruce. I was just about to say that we know you are here, so jump in.
Yeah. No, because I'm curious about a lot of things. I follow you all, of course, on Twitter.
Yeah.
And you have become more active in recent weeks, and I see that it's kind of a snowballing effect, as we say, that you're increasingly active on Twitter. How has that affected your groups, the numbers of people that do you find that more people are contacting you, more not necessarily just young people, but are more people trying to contact you now, and they want to get involved with your groups, they want to be part of it? Is that happening?
Absolutely. I'd say we also feel the constraint in time, because we can't believe that the government is being so soft towards single person protests recently. I know we're talking about how harsh and terrible it all is, but in fact, the fact that we don't get detained, or we get detained for a short time and then released, or we only get fined, is quite special. So we're kind of all waiting for, probably when they announce the elections into parliament, it will all stop and we'll go back to our good old authoritarian harshness. So the wave of these protests is definitely keeping the protest moods on, and more people get involved into this topic and interested in joining one of our movements in one way or another and showing some interest. So, for instance, recently we've announced that we're looking for volunteers for our movement, and we've received an incredible kind of feedback, and lots of people wanted to join us.
So you mentioned, it was mentioned that there was actually, there were activists in Shymkent that were also beaten up. But how broad now are your movements? Are you finding that more people in the West, Aktobe, Aktau, and down south, places like Shymkent, are you getting more people from those regions also contacting you and wanting to know how they might be able to get involved?
The fact that we have two languages very widespread it's good, but also causes some problems. Like, we mostly operate in Russian, and we will expand into Kazakh soon, but until then, it's kind of hard to work with a Kazakh-speaking audience. So in some regions, it's hard for us to find people.
Asim, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, of course, we are seeing that more and more people want to join our movement, and they're from all over the country, but there is a big problem with that, because we never know who are they, and we don't have any means to check them, because some of them might be from our police or from Committee of National Security, or we never know. That is why we just have our pages on social media, and whenever someone writes to me or any other person from our movement and wants to join us, we just send them links to our movement's social media accounts and ask them to follow us. And then we just watch them, how active they are, whether they are ready to really do something. Like sometimes we just ask those people, if you are from Shymkent, are you ready to go? We have these things we call them Siruyen, which are like our forms of peaceful rallies. We call them Siruyen, so we won't get too much attention from the police. So sometimes we just ask them to, if they could go and, participate in such activities, and that is how we kind of check them.
Yeah, I think Bruce's point was also about how broad is your support base. I believe now these days it's centered in Almaty. I believe some activism are taking place in Astana too. For example, tomorrow you are going to call for a demonstration on Constitution Day. What are the cities you expect people to come out?
Well, actually, we didn't call anyone. We won't tell anyone where this march is going to be at an exact time because we don't want any police to be there, at least for 20 or 30 minutes. I'm getting a lot of messages from all over the country, and I can say that we have the broad support, not only among young people, but also like all the other like age groups. But from the on the other hand, I get a lot of hate mails and hate texts and messages because a lot of people think that we work for government and we are pro-government and we were funded by government or whatever. So they have different opinions on us, and
I never funded by your department. Common.
Very familiar, very familiar stuff. In terms of the organization, like Kahraman, Republika, and then Oyan Qazaqstan, why you guys are not together?
We focus on different things, I'd say. So, as a human rights organization, Kahraman has nothing to do with political demands. I mean, as individuals, our participants, of course, have different political views and so on and can support whatever they want. But what brings us together is a very focused issue. We're focused on helping provide these freedoms and promote these freedoms. And we are involved in, recording the instances of violations of human rights and politically motivated trials. We are very focused on demanding to release political prisoners. So we have a very narrow focus on that.
But you guys at least collaborate in this or the other way. I mean, they are not. You don't hate each other, right?
Oh no, we're very good together with each other. I'd say we attend each other's events and we promote each other's events. Whenever something happens to people from our different groups, we always spread the information about each other and so on.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. We, in fact, a few of our activists were at Kahraman's Monstratia last Sunday, and they always support us with our Syrians. We always try to support them, and of course, we just have different agenda. We want political reforms. Republika, they want to form a political party, which is not our goal. We don't want any. We don't want to go to parliament. We just want to reform our political system and our constitution. Whereas Aliyah is trying they're trying to help political prisoners, which is also very important.
Okay, so this activism is already there for some time. The question is what the future holds for them, how they see their own future, and what kind of difference they made so far and what they plan going forward. Let's continue the Majlis podcast talking about these and many other questions very shortly. First, let me recap the debate that today on the Majlis, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty Central Asia podcast. I'm joined by Asam Japeshiva, one of the founding member of the youth-led group, Oyan Qazaqstan, Aliya Izbasarova, co-founder of another youth group called Kahraman, Aysana Ashim, CEO and founder of The Village, a youth-run publication in Almaty, Kazakhstan, and Bruce Pannier, editor of Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty Central Asia blog, Kishlok Awazi. I am Mohammed Tahir, host of the Majlis here in Washington, D.C., and we are discussing today and the future of youth-led activism in Kazakhstan. Okay, so about the current state of your groups, where they are today. Are you satisfied, Asam, from where you are today and where you got today?
Yes, I think so. Yes. I mean, it's been just 3 months. We officially announced that we were forming our movement on the 5th of June. So it's 29th of August, and I think we set some goals at the beginning in terms of reaching the right audience, and we wanted to actually understand first what we want to change about our country and what kind of political reforms we're demanding. So we have this picture. We know exactly what we want. And a few days ago, we sent our demands to our government, to our president's office and all the other offices, and we are expecting them to react somehow. So yeah, I'm quite happy with where we are now. I don't know about tomorrow though, because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But for now, I'm quite happy.
And Aliya, how do you describe the progress that you guys made so far?
Well, we're even younger than Oyan, twice younger. So we're 1.5 months old. So yeah, for 1.5 months, I think we've gotten where at least we've planned by now. We've evolved even in such a small time, and I think we've understood who we are and what we're doing in the process of actually doing it. So we've gone on series of demonstrations. We've been recording them and visiting them and documenting them. Some of our activists have gone on trips to different cities to attend politically motivated trials. And our approach, the way we work, has become, I'd say, more professional and smooth. We know what we're doing as we write letters, as we connect with the media, as we, write the posts on social media. We've gotten more assertive and confident in these areas, and we expand all the time. So yesterday we've announced the start of our Telegram news channel. A few days before that, or maybe a week before that, we started, as I said, to look for volunteers, and there are so many areas in which we are constantly developing, and it really makes me happy. I think we will come to some good results.
Well, let me bring in Aysana, you here. As far as I can tell, you are not an official member of neither of these groups. So as a young Kazakhstani, how do you see their progress?
I think that I'm biased. I'm kind of maybe member because I'm going on a march tomorrow too. And also I wanted to add that my mom was a participant of Shymkent, the event in 1986. That's why we share the same values, and it's no problem for me with my parents doing whatever I want. The problem is freedom of speech in our country and how our government is suppressing our media, even though we were one of 10 media that were blocked on 10th of May, 9th of May. So, but observing what Oyan Qazaqstan and Kahraman are doing, I think that's great for people who are young, who don't have so much power and money, and they just have this eyes with passion and the willingness to do and knowledge. Most of them, they got irrigation, they studied abroad and so on and so on. And they see from ordinary people that they want to join. They see someone they can follow. And now they just don't know how to act, how to put some value also. And even Asiem, she's not telling everything about that, that different people, they call her and ask what they can do. And I think it's great for our country, but it's very soon to say some things, because everything can change. For example, even, the certificate of security for internet, okay, they stopped it for now. But what will happen next? We don't know. So we need to monitor, we need to watch, and we need to keep them threatened, because if they will rest, they will do something, and it's our responsibility.
Okay, Bruce. Can I have Bruce here? But Bruce, you look into these things from abroad, and this is certainly something new in Central Asia and definitely in Kazakhstan. This youth-led activism, to the extent that we are talking about today. So, what you see their impact so far has been?
And I think you summed it up. I haven't seen anything like this in many, many years in Kazakhstan. Really, in Central Asia, it's great credit to the people here, as our guests and the people that are with them in their groups, that they're making their voice heard very loudly. At least from where I'm sitting, and admittedly, I'm watching Central Asia all the time. But I haven't seen this kind of activism in Kazakhstan since the 1990s, really. And so it's very refreshing to see that here's a group that's interested in politics. You get for a while there, the previous 10 years or something, you'd hear about Kazakhstan's youth, and it was about materialism and trying to become wealthy, and that's pretty much what they always focused on, here's a report from Kazakhstan, here's a young person who's starting up a business, right? And it was always like that. So I find it very, like I said, refreshing to watch and see that people are interested, young people are interested in the political system and trying to change it so that it works for them and gets them something better in the future. Not necessarily get rich from business, but improve the whole country at the same, in one go. So, like I said, it's been fascinating to watch this. I'm looking forward to watching what happens in the coming months, certainly. And really, it's I don't see a parallel in any of the other Central Asian countries. Kyrgyzstan has always had a lot of protests. They got a lot of political parties and movements, but it represents a range of people, and that has always been true of Kyrgyzstan, and then from the very start, from independence. Whereas this is something new in Kazakhstan that we're seeing now, and I think it's a healthy thing for the Kazakh authorities. I don't think they kind of settled into the idea that whatever they wanted to do was beyond challenge, and people were just going to take whatever rules they made up. And so it's nice to see someone push back and say, no, the system can still work, but we don't have to have some of these more restrictions that you put on society. We don't have to be quiet all the time when you make decisions that we don't like. I think it's a good thing.
Right. And Alia,
thank you. Yeah. I was just going to add something. Well, first of all, yes, I agree with both of you, especially the fact that we've now realized that, let us say, economics follows politics. So politics always comes first when you want to fix a country. And we've only started to realize it here. And the majority of Kazakh population is actually young. Kazakhstani population is, I think, under 25. So it's a very young country with lots of young people, and they represent a huge force here, which I think is quite inspiring. So what we need now, really, our goal is not to count on the older generation with their, post-Soviet kind of thinking, Soviet mentality and so on, that holds them back and pulls us back too. We are counting on ourselves, our younger generation, and most importantly, the support of international community. So for us, the important thing is when representatives of foreign governments come to Kazakhstan, talk about trade, to talk about business and bilateral partnerships, however they want to call it, we are really calling on them to continue raising cases of individual cases, political prisoners, people who are under political persecution, and to continue raising the issues of human rights. We want to import the political freedom and the mentality of freedom to express ourselves and have different political views freely without the fear of getting detained or imprisoned for that.
Yeah, Ali, you said that you are looking for support from the international community, and you also explained nicely what they could do. So are you getting that support that you expect from international community?
In terms of media, yes, a lot of interest. In terms of representatives of foreign governments, we are reaching out, and we are hoping that we could come to greater cooperation and we could get greater interest and response to our messages to them, our letters that we send to them. In terms of those who, as I said, come to Kazakhstan and have talks with the president or his representatives on different issues, I also hope that in the future they could do more on the part of raising the issues of human rights that are so hugely violated in Kazakhstan.
Right. Okay, Asem, we heard Aliyah, she has lots of things on her agenda going forward. I believe your agenda doesn't look smaller than hers. So what's the next big thing on your agenda?
Well, we are going to keep demanding these political reforms in Kazakhstan. I cannot share with you our plans because of the security reasons, but we have a lot of things to do, and we know exactly where we are going. So we're going to keep demanding all these reforms to happen, and we want our country to change in a few years. We don't want to spend next 10 years trying to change something. We want this happen very fast, and we're going to work on it very hard.
Aysana, is this a realistic goal that Assam has? She wants to change it. She wants to change it.
Realistic.
She wants to change it not in 10 years, but quicker than that.
Well, we don't know, but we hope that it would be that it's realistic.
We have to also end the discussion here. We already way over time. So about the future, Alia. So how do you see the future of this group, this Kahraman?
I think we are on the right way of expanding far enough. Well, first, we would like to kind of scale up our organization, as if you can call it so, and registering, working more seriously, working more professionally, and becoming observers of politically motivated trials and persecutions. And we would like to go and have conversations with representatives of international organizations and be the ones who deliver the messages of those who suffer human rights violations here, deliver the information about their instances, do the work of letting the world know about what is happening here in Kazakhstan, as well as spread the information inside here amongst the people and get as many people here to know about the atrocities that are taking place.
Assam, your group, where do you see yourself in let's say in 3 or 5 years?
I hope to see us in a very good place. I hope that we reach our goals, and I want to continue working as a journalist. I want to, and we all want to, get back to our normal lives. But we don't want to go to the government or personally. I don't want to go anywhere near these places, and I don't want any power. And I just want this political reforms to happen and get back to my normal life as a journalist.
Okay. I think let's end this with Aysana and Bruce. So, where you guys see their future?
Go ahead, Aysana.
I hope that Asyam will go back to her normal life as a journalist. Actually, I don't know. It's very chaotic time. Maybe, and we don't know yet who is Tokayev. I mean, because he didn't show his political actions. We all know that his decisions are not his own. Okay, that's why maybe time will change and we will see something different. And it's a complex
political environment. Yeah. Okay. Bruce, let's get your point and the discussion here.
Well, for years people were speculating about what would happen when Nazarbayev finally retires after 30 years in power. What will happen? What will Kazakhstan look like? Well, and there was these predictions about Generation Nazarbayev, right? People that would have been indoctrinated into the Nazarbayev system and would think that he was, the father of the nation and everything. And it was implied that they would just kind of follow the course that he had set. And he has clamped down on a lot of freedoms and rights, over the course of the years. And so the speculation was that the young people either wouldn't be that interested in politics or would just figure that, the system that they'd grown up in was the system that they wanted to remain in. So, like I said, this is just, I think it's fantastic that all those predictions were wrong. And there are a lot of young people that are very interested in politics. They do want to change the system. They understand what's going on in their country. They're not rebels. They want to work within the system, and they haven't been brainwashed, as a lot of people seem to think, into just doing whatever the government was going to tell them to do because they had only known one leader in their country. They've looked outside the country to other examples of government, other examples of rights activism, and they've taken that on. And so there's a new vitality and energy in Kazakh politics that hasn't been there for almost 20 years. And I think it's just a plus for the whole country that there are people like our guests and their friends that are out there and they're willing to stand up and say that we don't want to overthrow the system. We're not trying to change everything, but we do want to change some things that are wrong. And we're going to stay here and keep calling for change until we get them.
Right. Okay. Terrific. Thank you very much, Bruce Pannier, editor of Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty Central Asia blog, Kishlog Awazi, and big thanks goes to Asim Ejapshiva, co-founder of the youth-led group Oyan Qazaqstan, Alia Izbasarova, co-founder of another youth group called Kahraman, and Aysana Ashim, CEO and founder of the Village, a youth-run publication in Almaty, Kazakhstan. Thank you, colleagues, for your time and thoughts today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. And this is from me, Mohammed Tahir, host of the Majlis podcast, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty Central Asia podcast. Until next week, bye-bye.